This lesson takes the still-to-still morph that we did in the previous tutorial a step further for a more advanced level of control. You should watch the still-to-still tutorial first so you understand how I got where I am with the result that I will be starting with here. I'm going to demonstrate how we can have per-spline opacity changes. This technique can also be applied to moving morphs. You can download the project called Varying Dissolve Rates, and you can work along with me, or you can try this on your own after watching the tutorial. It's always easier to visualize what I'm talking about if I show you a visual. So take a look at what I'm referring to by per spline opacity changes. You can see that the Audi emblem now becomes the VW emblem quicker than before, and the headlights start their transition a little later and happen a bit faster. This is to say that by default, when we use the global warp parameter, we get a linear warp and blend. In order to make it nonlinear or customize the rate of the dissolve, we need to disable the auto blend %. Now we can select all the splines and use the keyboard shortcut TT on both Mac and Windows to show the mask opacity for all the splines. We can use the mask opacity to determine the blend percentage between the from image and the to image. A value of 0% would make it completely the from image, and a value of 100% would make it completely the to image. Values in between will blend the amount of the from and to for each mask appropriately. You can go to the first frame, in this case frame 0, and reselect the opacity for all the masks, and select the stopwatch. Animation will be activated for all the masks. Now you can set the first frame for all the masks to 0% to make it completely the from image. We can go to the last frame now, in this case frame 30. We can set this keyframe to 100% to make it completely the to image. If you scroll through the timeline, you will see that our result would be the same as if we had auto blend checked. Now we can change things up a bit. Let's say we want to have the Audi headlights wait a beat before they start transitioning to the VW headlights. We can select both headlights opacity at the same time and go to frame 10 and set another key to 0%. Now we have a keyframe at frame 0 and a keyframe at frame 10 that are both 0. So the image will be holding on the Audi for the first 10 frames and then start to transition to the VW headlights. Now let's look at the logo emblem. I'm thinking we should have this transition happen quickly because it looks a bit awkward. Let's leave the first keyframe at 0 and keep it at 0%, or the from image, which is the Audi. Now let's go to frame 25 and set the keyframe. We will make it 100%, or completely the to image, or the VW emblem. Let's do a RAM preview now, so you can see how this looks. You will see that the emblem transitions quickly from the Audi to the VW, and the headlights wait a beat and then they start to transition to the VW. Let's take a look at a couple more things. You can also manually change the shape interpolation for the keyframe by right mouse clicking on the keyframe and changing it to a different type of interpolation, like linear or Bezier. Another thing you can do is check your work or debug your transition by going to the Effect Controls and pull down on the Display menu to select Control Image. You will see a representation of the dissolve amounts for your morph. This display mode is very useful because it displays the amount of the to image blended for each pixel. The whiter the pixel, the more of the to image will be displayed. A full black pixel in the control image means that the from image will be displayed at that pixel. Values in between full black and full white represent a blend of the to and from images. Also, know that at a picture key, the amount of blend will always be shown as full white. There is one last thing that I want to mention. You may have wondered why there is a choice between using mask expansion and mask opacity for the per mask blend amount, or you may not have wondered, but I'm going to tell you why. Let's say you set up two morphs along the timeline for a still to still to still morph. For the first morph, you use the mask opacity of each mask and animate their values so that the mask opacity values end up at 100% at the end of the first morph. However, you want the values of the blend to be 0 at the beginning of the next morph, right? 0 means take the pixels from the from image. But you've already set the blend amount to 100. What do? Well, you can keyframe the settings so that the first morph receives its blend amount from the mask opacity, and the second morph receives its blend amounts from the mask expansion. That way you can set up the second morph so you have a key of 0 for the mask expansion for the start of the second morph to use as the blend amount, and then set keys of value of 100 for mask expansion at the end of the second morph. In this way, you may have a value of 100 for the blend amount for the end of the first morph, retrieved from the mask opacity, and a value of 0 for the blend amount at the beginning of the second morph, retrieved from the mask expansion. Then, if you want to set up another morph, you can flip the setting back to use the mask opacity and set up the animation for expansion from 0 to 100 for the next segment, etc. In this case, I've also added a boundary. I did that because I thought when the backgrounds were all morphing, it was getting a little too busy. We learned about boundaries in the Warper Basics Part 1 tutorial, so you can always go back and watch that for review. That should cover everything. You can also take a look at the result project I provided in the After Effects project you downloaded if you want to check anything. And I included a second result project which is with this additional car added on, so you can check out those settings as well. Now you know how we vary the dissolve rate using Reflex Morph.